This podcast is sponsored by AXA Farm Insurance. AXA offers tailored cover to fit your unique needs, whether it's public liability or protection for your family home, outbuildings or farm vehicles. Based in Athlone, the AXA Farm team of agri-specialists and regional managers work together to ensure you receive the seamless support you need. Switching to AXA is easy thanks to an innovative online service that enables you to quickly and easily find the best cover for your needs. For more information, head to AXA.ie. AXA Insurance DAC is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland. Thanks for listening, and we hope you enjoy the show.
Hello and welcome to the Farming Week, the podcast from Agriland that keeps you up to date with all the latest in Irish agriculture. I'm Francess McDonnell, and joining me on this episode is my colleague Aisling O'Brien. Now, once upon a time, it used to be said that a week was a long time in politics. But given that it's nearly 7 weeks since we had a general election in this country, I think that's probably redundant at this stage. But Aisling, it appears our wait might be over. So is there a fairy tale coalition waiting in the wings if the new draft programme for government is to be believed?
Well, I don't know if we're going to call it a fairy tale coalition government. We'll give them a couple of years and see how they get on first. But as you said, after a long time waiting and a lot of discussions on the formation of a new government, this week we got finally a draft programme for government document after Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael agreed to form the next government with the support of a number of TDs, including from the Regional Independent Group and the independent Healy-Rae brothers from Kerry. Of course, that is Michael and Danny. Now, this draft document is now going to be subject to the approval of party members in Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael over the coming days. And that will then clear the way for the nomination of a Taoiseach when the Dáil returns next Wednesday, which is January 22nd, and the formation of the 35th Government of Ireland. We're being told that Micheál Martin will take up the role of Taoiseach initially, with Simon Harris then coming into the fold for the final 2 years, is what we believe is going to be the lie of the land there. So similar to the election campaign, Francess, this is the season of pledges and commitments from our politicians who are going to be inhabiting the government benches for the coming years. But what are some of the headlines for farmers in this document, which runs to some 160 odd pages? Well, we're being told that as Ireland is going to hold the EU presidency in 2026, the new government has said that protecting farmers and farming at EU level will be an absolute priority in terms of the next common agricultural policy. Of course, a new CAP is due in 2027, so Ireland taking over the presidency in 2026 will be at a crucial time in those negotiations as well. The government is also committed to work with like-minded EU countries to stand up for Irish farmers and defend the interests of Irish farmers in opposing the current Mercosur trade deal. And closer to home, Francess, we're being told that there will be a lot of supports offered across the various farm sectors, but not really much detail in this document about how that will look. Now, the government, the incoming government, I should say they will increase scheme supports for suckler farmers over a 5-year term in office and ensure straightforward measures to encourage their uptake. The incoming government will also financially incentivise the use of genetically superior beef AI stock bulls. Scheme supports for sheep will be increased over the 5-year term. And again, they will ensure straightforward measures to encourage uptake. I suppose that does speak to the fact that schemes are often criticised for being complicated and that may be over onerous on farmers as well. So maybe this is a move to simplify schemes out there. Staying with sheep, and the incoming government are going to examine the feasibility of a scouring plant for wool as part of the development of an Irish wool brand. And they say that investment will also be made significantly in the tillage sector over the 5 years to maintain and grow that sector. And they said facilities for processing of Irish crops will be examined and openings for oilseed and milling wheat processing will be explored. An increased scheme will be implemented for the dairy beef scheme over the 5-year term in office. And we're also being told that market access will be increased for poultry and pig products, while funding capital investments in those sectors will also be looked at to improve animal health and welfare as well. Now, the government said it will work with farmers, industry, state agencies and local authorities to develop evidence-based solutions to assist farmers in improving water quality and staying with water quality. The government have made a pledge as well in terms of the retention of Ireland's nitrates derogation. We did learn from this document, I suppose, that Cabinet Committee on Water Quality, which would be chaired by the Taoiseach of the day, which we had flagged, I suppose, some months back, that is going to be established. And we are going to see coordination as well of water quality improvements across all sectors as well. And the government pledging to fight Ireland's case at EU level on the nitrates derogation as well. Now, the document also says that the incoming government is going to examine a new farm income volatility taxation measure to safeguard farmers from markets rising and falling. In terms of succession, we're being promised a new farm succession scheme that supports generational renewal. And we will return to that a little bit later in the podcast, because generational renewal has turned up in a couple of different stories this week on Agriland. But back to the draft programme for government document, Francess and the government has said that they will work with the Department of Health to examine the Fair Deal scheme when it comes to farming and farm families. And I suppose that has been a cause for concern out there amongst some families. There will be a review and update of the National TB Eradication Strategy, and we're being told that will be made by working in collaboration with farmers and the wider industry. When it comes to the nature restoration law as well, we're being told that the measures under the nature restoration law will be completely voluntary for farmers. That is the pledge from this incoming government. They're also going to examine barriers for women farmers within the taxation system to ensure greater inclusivity and fairness. And I suppose they're also pledging to give increased powers to the agri-food regulator as well, which is something that the regulator has been asking for. A lot more detail on our website and app. As you can appreciate, there's a lot to digest in this document. A lot of promises being made this week, Francess.
Now, you would imagine, Aisling, that some of the boxes have been ticked when it comes to what the farm organisations had asked politicians to deliver. So what do they think of the programme for government?
Yeah, I suppose on initial inspection, Francess, the farm organisations on the whole have broadly welcomed many of the proposals that have been outlined, but have again pointed to the lack of detail on maybe how some schemes might be delivered and increased supports as well. The IFA President, Francie Gorman, said that a lot of commitments in the document were consistent with IFA policy, but he said that the document does not contain any clarity on the level of funding for farm schemes, but he did welcome the commitments on the nitrates derogation and on, I suppose, fighting against the EU-Mercosur trade deal as well. The ICMSA President, Dennis Drennan, said the pledges made in the document were encouraging and they demonstrate what he said was an admirable change in tone from government in relation to farming and food production. And he said that the association was also pleased to see commitments made by the next coalition government, particularly in relation to Mercosur and the maintenance of the nitrates derogation as well. Now, he highlighted that the ICMSA strongly welcomed the new government's commitment to examine a new farming income volatility taxation measure. And he also said that a commitment to a farm succession scheme was very positive as well to ensure the next generation of farmers entering the industry as well. And I suppose on that note and looking at young farmers, the MACRA National President Elaine Houlihan said that the new programme for government has to deliver for young people and it has to make substantive investments in rural youth. And she said that young people will expect the commitments outlined in this document to be delivered on. And she said the new government has set out its ambitions to deliver on generational renewal, and young people will be watching very closely and holding the government to account on this point as well. Of course, MACRA has long called for a farm succession scheme as well, and it has very strongly campaigned on generational renewal. The Irish Nature and Hill Farmers Association welcomed key elements included in the document. However, again, they did point to the lack of detail in relation to many of the supports being outlined, particularly for sucklers and sheep, and they said that's a feature that has to be addressed. The INHFA National President Vincent Roddy said farmers needed specifics around these supports and detail about what the monetary increase will be. He said that there were many positives in the document, especially around proposals to bring the control of dogs under the responsibility of one department. Of course, that's fallen under a couple of different departments up to now. He also welcomed the feasibility study on the scouring plant for the Irish wool industry and the opposition to the Mercosur deal. But he did express major disappointment with the continuation of the carbon tax, which he described as a tax on farming and rural Ireland.
And do we know yet who might get the top jobs when it comes to the Department of Agriculture, Food and the Marine?
Yeah, we've got some clarity this week. I suppose the top job, the Minister for Agriculture portfolio, there is currently uncertainty about where that ministerial role is going, but it seems like it may well be Martin Hayden, who, of course, was a junior minister in the last government in the Department of Agriculture, Food and the Marine. And it seems likely, maybe, or that people are tipping that he will actually step up into the top role in the department in the incoming government. But that will all become clear next week, Francess, when we do have the formation of a new government. But that does seem to be the indication at the moment. But as with all things in politics, we give a health warning with that as well. Now, it's also understood that independent TD Noel Grealish from Galway will be appointed as a super junior minister in the Department of Agriculture, while Sean Canny from the regional group will be appointed a super junior minister in the Department of Transport. And back to the Department of Agriculture, and Deputy Michael Healy-Rae from County Kerry, we understand will be appointed as a junior minister in the department, and we understand that his responsibilities will be for forestry, horticulture and farm safety. However, of course, all of that yet to be officially confirmed, Francess, and we'll get confirmation around that next week. But as things stand, it looks like Noel Grealish and Michael Healy-Rae and possibly Martin Hayden going into the Department of Agriculture at this point.
Now, Ireland thankfully has not had a case of the highly contagious foot and mouth disease since the outbreak back in 2001. But confirmation from Germany that its first case of foot and mouth disease since 1988 has recently been detected in water buffalo in the state of Brandenburg. This has naturally caused worry for Irish farmers. So, Aisling, what is the latest here?
Yeah, so as you said, Francess, news broke last Friday from German authorities that they did confirm this first outbreak of foot and mouth disease in that country since 1988. Of course, many people in this country very familiar with that disease from the outbreak back in 2001. And I know that a lot of people out there shuddered when they heard that there was an outbreak, I suppose, on continental Europe. And, given the trading links around the globe, it is some cause for concern, definitely. So Germany's Department of Agriculture said that measures had been put in place to destroy the affected animals, and they set up exclusion zones immediately once this was confirmed. There was a protection zone with a radius of 3 kilometres and then a surveillance zone of 10 kilometres around the site of this outbreak. And that is something that I suppose has to be welcomed, that the authorities were very quick to act on this. Now, of course, foot and mouth disease, it's a highly contagious and sometimes fatal disease, a viral disease, which affects cattle, sheep, pigs and other cloven-hoofed animals. It is widespread worldwide, but it hasn't actually been present in the European Union for several years now. It's a virus that's easily transmitted by both animate and inanimate vectors, particularly animals in the incubation period, we're told, or clinically affected animals and their products. But it can also be spread over long distances by air. Now, it is a disease, it's a listed disease by the World Organization for Animal Health. And of course, it has the potential to spread very rapidly, regardless of national borders. Now, it's not dangerous to humans, it has to be said, and under the usual hygienic conditions, pasteurized milk or milk products pose no danger to consumers. So it is important to state that. Now, yesterday we did report on Agriland that animal testing by authorities in Germany has not resulted in any further cases of foot and mouth being detected within 1 kilometre of the site of the initial outbreak, which was confirmed last week. And also we saw Germany's federal minister for agriculture meeting with stakeholders in the country to discuss the outbreak and obviously the unfolding situation and the possible consequences for German farmers and for the markets there. And he said that the common goal has to be to act quickly to push back the virus in order to protect the animals and minimize damage to Germany's agriculture and food industry. Now, as I said, Ireland has been free of foot and mouth disease, having had its last case back in 2001. And the Department of Agriculture said it is taking action to protect Irish livestock following this outbreak. And it has confirmed that no animals susceptible to foot and mouth disease, which is cattle, sheep and pigs, have been imported into Ireland from Germany since November 1st of last year, which of course is long before the case in Germany would have first been infected. Now, they said that Ireland's controls to prevent the disease include strict prohibitions on the imports of animals and animal products from countries in which foot and mouth disease is present. And there is a comprehensive veterinary surveillance system to detect unusual disease outbreaks and active follow-up and veterinary investigation of any suspected reports. So I suppose if this happened in Ireland, and hopefully, touch wood, it is not going to come to our shores, I suppose similar measures would be adopted. Those protection zones and surveillance zones would be set up by the department, and a national movement ban would also be very likely to be imposed in the initial days. So in the event that foot and mouth disease, and hopefully, as I said, it doesn't return to Ireland, if it was to occur here, it would lead to the immediate loss of market access for Irish animals and Irish products. And I suppose it just underlines the need for vigilance across the entire sector to ensure that we prevent any outbreak of foot and mouth disease here. Minister for Agriculture, Charlie McDonnell, said he was dismayed to hear of the outbreak of foot and mouth disease. And he said it was a terrible blow to German farmers. And he did urge everybody in Ireland, particularly farmers, to stay vigilant and to protect Irish livestock as well. Now, the ICMSA President Denis Drennan said from an Irish perspective, it is important that the appropriate precautionary measures are taken at border entry points to minimise any risks. And he urged people travelling to the Greater Berlin area from Ireland to follow the advice of experts in relation to importing food items. And it's interesting to note as well, I suppose, across the water, the UK government has actually announced a ban on the importation of cattle, pigs and sheep from Germany to protect farmers and their livelihoods in the UK. However, it has been revealed that that decision to ban those imports does not apply to Northern Ireland, and the DUP MP Carla Lockhart actually criticised that move this week. And she said she was very alarmed but not surprised to learn that under EU internal market arrangements that the export ban does not affect movements to other EU member states, which she said unfortunately includes Northern Ireland.
So it's really just going to be a wait and see to see how this now unfolds over the next few weeks, Aisling.
Yeah, and a great level of vigilance, Frances. I think everybody remembers back to 2001, those awful images of animals being piled up across the UK and, you know, the disinfectant mats everywhere. And I think it was a very upsetting time for those in the agriculture sector and outside of it as well, Frances, and definitely something we do not want to return to.
Yeah, absolutely, Aisling. Now, let's take a look at why one County Cork co-op has had to come out this week and explain why it decided to update its loyalty reward scheme. Tell us why some Dairygold milk suppliers are unhappy about this development, Aisling.
Yes, so on Monday night, hundreds of people attended a meeting in County Cork to discuss ongoing concerns among Dairygold milk suppliers. Now, the meeting was held in the Fairgrove Hotel in Mitchelstown, and it was organised by Dairygold milk supplier Niall Toomey, who is from County Cork. Now, many of the suppliers who attended that meeting, Frances, expressed their frustration at the milk price being paid by Dairygold and about how they feel that the co-op is currently being run. Now, Niall Toomey spoke with us here on Agriland, and he said he feels there's been huge changes in the last 10 years since milk quotas were abolished, and he believes that Dairygold is now top-heavy and has lost the co-op ethos. And he told us that their ancestors built the co-op milking cows by hand and drawing milk to the creamery in milk churns by horse and cart. And he said that grain trading began in Dairygold from farming families harvesting crops of wheat, oats and barley using hand tools. And he said blood, sweat and tears had gone into the formation of the co-op and the co-op ethos. And he added that farmers deserve to know how the co-op is being managed on a day-to-day basis and where farmers' money is being spent. Now, suppliers at that meeting agreed to several key demands which they believe should be pushed to Dairygold management. And they include the immediate scrapping of the recently updated loyalty bonus scheme, planned capital investments for 2025 to be shelved, and the notice period for milk suppliers seeking to leave Dairygold to be reduced to 3 months from what Niall Toomey said would currently amount to 3 years at the moment, because it's on paper it's 2 years, but that would apply from the 31st of December in a year. So if you sent in a termination notice now, you'd actually be facing 3 years in theory. Now, during the meeting, a committee was chosen to represent the Dairygold milk suppliers in the room. And the committee includes Niall Toomey, Ned O'Keefe, who's a former Fianna Fáil TD from Cork, Owen Burke from Limerick, Tig McSweeney from Cork, and Nigel Sweetenham, who's a dairy and poultry farmer from Cork. Now, this group are going to hold a private meeting, we were told, before then seeking to meet with the Dairygold Chief Executive Michael Hart, the Dairygold Chair Pat Clancy and Vice Chair Donald Shinnock, along with then a separate discussion with the Co-op Board. And Niall Toomey said that the number one priority is for Dairygold to be in the top 2 in the next milk price league. And he warned that if demands of milk suppliers were not met, then very strong industrial action is planned, according to him. So Nigel Sweetenham, who is also the Irish Farmers Association National Poultry Committee Chair, told Agriland that he'd never seen so much anger in a room as he did at the meeting on Monday night. And he believed that that meeting actually shone a poor light on farm organisations, that they had not highlighted the concerns of Dairygold suppliers before now. And he added that he was impressed by the number of young people present at the meeting, saying that they were fighting for them and for their future. Now, as you said, following that meeting, Dairygold issued a statement, Francess, outlining that it had updated its loyalty reward scheme with the intention of further rewarding its members and customers who trade with the society. Now, they said that the loyalty reward scheme is a demonstration of Dairygold's ethos and belief that a successful co-op is built on a strong relationship of mutual benefit between the member and the society. And they said milk suppliers who trade with the co-op contribute to its overall business performance and should be rewarded. And the Cork Co-op also confirmed that it had received milk supplier agreement termination notices from a number of members from purchasing groups over apparent concerns about changes to the loyalty reward scheme as well. Now, they noted that since this scheme was launched back in November 2015, it's actually paid out over 21 million euro. And they said that the updated scheme seeks to increase the rewards paid to those who are actively trading with the co-op. And they said that the majority of Dairygold members have actually reacted positively to the proposed changes, but they did say they are aware of concerns expressed over the change. And they did say that they were seeking to meet with all members who had expressed concerns to offer clarification on the changes. And they said they would continue to engage with members at board level and management and through their committees and governance structures as well. Now, they also did highlight, I suppose, some of the concerns that were raised at that meeting in Mitchelstown on Monday night. And they did say that Dairygold's net bank debt remains at a very manageable level within their banking covenants, and our strong balance sheet provides the flexibility to continue to invest in higher margin activities. And they said that the Society's capital investment projects over the past decade provide a world-class dairy processing infrastructure that has not only facilitated the milk suppliers' expansion ambitions, but also provides for the foundation of higher value processing as well, and sustainable and lower emission operations. So I suppose there's a lot more to come, Francess, on this, because I would imagine that committee, that subcommittee that was formed as a result of that meeting, are going to want to meet with Dairygold and take them up on that offer of a meeting, or I don't know what structure that might take. And Francess, I'm sure there is more yet to come from those milk suppliers who've expressed those concerns, and stay tuned to Agriland for any updates.
And let's just stay with milk prices for a minute. At its meeting today, the board of Dairygold Co-op maintained its December quoted milk price at 50 cent per litre based on standard constituents of 3.3% protein and 3.6% butterfat, inclusive of sustainability and quality bonuses and VAT. That means the December milk price equates to an average Farmgate milk price of 64.8 cents per litre based on the average December 2024 milk solids achieved by Dairygold milk suppliers. Lakeland Dairies confirmed its milk price for the month of December and has also confirmed that the loyalty payment announced last month will be paid out. The processor has decided to hold its price at 49.6 cents a litre for milk supplied from the Republic of Ireland, which is also inclusive of the 0.5 cent a litre sustainability incentive payment. Qualifying farmers will also receive a 5 cent per litre out of season payment. Meanwhile, in Northern Ireland, a base price of 40.8 pence per litre will be paid for milk supplied in December, which is inclusive of the 0.5 pence per litre sustainability incentive payment. And if you want to see more about what the Group Chief Executive of Lakeland Dairies, that's Colin Kelly, believes how the milk price is going to fare in 2025. Agriland recently did an interview as part of our On the Record series with him, and he's basically said the average milk price in 2025 is likely to be higher than the average milk price in 2024. But he also did warn that the industry is facing a number of potential challenges. And this was a theme that we saw this week also in the Irish Farm Report 2025, which was conducted by the Farming, Food and Agribusiness Specialist professional service firm IFAC. It has also said, Aisling, that there's going to be some challenges on the horizon for dairy farmers this year.
Yes, Frances, I suppose given all of the discussion both here at home and across Europe about the level of red tape and bureaucracy that farmers face on a daily basis, the headline finding from the Irish Farm Report for 2025 is somewhat unsurprising. It found that 60% of the over 1,035 farmers who were surveyed as part of this report said that rules and regulations were their top concern. That was closely followed by input prices and the weather. But overall, 51% of farmers are positive about the future, which is an improvement on last year's figure of 46%, but is below the optimism levels of 2023, which stood at 56%. Now, the report said that 67% of the respondents intend to remain in farming over the next 5 years, with a further 24% unsure of their future plans. Now, the findings point to gaps in farmers' financial planning and knowledge, such as 70% not creating budgets, which IFAC said expose them to financial risk. 1 in 3 don't know if their pension would provide a sufficient income in retirement. And 39% of tillage farmers who took part in the survey have no private pension in place, which is compared to 22% of all farmers. 1 in 3 farmers over the age of 50 don't have a will in place. And in relation to succession, the findings again show that it is an ongoing challenge for the industry, even though slightly more families are starting to tackle the issue of succession planning. Now, the report shows that 23% say the biggest barrier to succession and securing the future for their farm is that the lifestyle actually doesn't appeal to the next generation, which is now a growing issue for the sector. And a quarter of farmers who took part in this survey, Frances, said that their children are actually not interested in taking over the family farm. And IFAC said that this is the number one challenge out there at the moment for succession planning. Now, we did learn from the report that 1 in 3 farmers have chosen a successor, but this leaves 1 in 5 with no successor at all, and a lot of farms out there in limbo. And interestingly, one model that supports succession, it seems from this report, is farm partnerships. Half of the farmers in a partnership have identified a clear successor. And I suppose there's lots of detail, as you can imagine, in this report, Frances, loads of different aspects covered on our website and app. But one final thing just to note is that 1 in 5 farmers out there say they currently need additional slurry and soiled water storage, but they're likely not to act until the nitrates derogation picture is clearer for them in the longer term. But as I said, a lot more detail on the website and app on that IFAC Irish Farm Report for 2025.
It's a very curious mixture, isn't it, Aisling, of some very upbeat messages, but at the same time, some underlying concerns.
Yeah, it is absolutely, Frances. And I think it's always a good barometer of where we are in the sector and how slight changes or improvements, it gives some positivity to the sector, because I suppose when we talk about generational renewal, I know we're going to speak about it in just a second, it is important to have confidence in the sector as well, and that farms are viable. And this survey does look at farm viability as well, and that being an issue as well. It's not just maybe the farming lifestyle that is failing to appeal to some of the next generation. It's also the viability and the ability of an average Irish farm to support, maybe more than one family or maybe more than one generation as well.
And that generational renewal issue, as you said, we've been talking about it all week. We've been writing about it in Agriland all week. And you were talking to the national president of MACRA, Elaine Houlihan, exactly on this issue this week.
Yeah, so this week, MACRA hit the road, Frances, to host 3 public consultations on the whole issue of generational renewal. Around 50 people attended a meeting in Adair in County Limerick on Wednesday night to share their concerns about the whole issue of generational renewal in farming. The meeting was open to all farmers, and it's one of 3, as I said, that are being hosted around the country. There is another one on tonight if you're in the Kilkenny area at 7:30. So there's more details on the website and app if you want to go along to that. So the meeting in Adair saw everybody in attendance placed into several groups to discuss 4 key areas that MACRA had identified. That was access to land, access to finance, knowledge exchange, and social sustainability. And those in attendance, Frances, highlighted how the high cost of buying and leasing land for young farmers is a major obstacle for them, and also the stress that is associated with trying to access land as well. One table at the meeting mentioned the issue of people who don't actually make their main income from farming buying up land as an investment, and that being an issue as well, and trying to compete with that buying power when you're a young farmer. And others felt that the personal touch is gone from banks, and they highlighted how it can be very hard to access finance for young farmers, especially maybe those who are coming from what they described as a low base. Now, the meeting also heard a call for knowledge transfer to be reimagined and to make it more interactive and more like moving it away from being what could be seen as maybe a box ticking exercise for some farmers who view it maybe as just getting a payment, and that it could maybe be reimagined and be more interactive. And some of those at the meeting also suggested a mentor scheme where older farmers could actually share their experience, knowledge and skills with the younger generation, and that could be a possible solution as well. Now, on the topic of social sustainability and rural Ireland, one farmer said that rural life is dying out as people can't actually afford to build or rent in rural areas. And planning was also an issue that was highlighted, along with young people choosing to immigrate or being forced to immigrate, and also a lack of resources in rural Ireland. So I suppose the feedback from all of these meetings, the Monaghan one that happened earlier in the week, the Limerick one and the Kilkenny one, are going to all be fed in to MACRA's submission to the Commission on Generational Renewal, which is running a public consultation at the moment. And if you want to make a submission to the Commission, you can do so yourself. That's open until the end of this month. And it is, worth looking at if it is an area that you want this commission, because that's going to feed into government policy on this area and that farm succession scheme, which is, promised in the draft programme for government, and that commitment is there as well. And as you said, I was speaking to MACRA National President Elaine Houlihan at the meeting last night, and she said that, generational renewal is a massive priority for MACRA. And she said when it comes to the next government, young people in rural areas and particularly young farmers will need a lot more than just a document. Have a listen.
Extremely important, but the one thing I will say, paper never refused ink. We need action. We don't need it down on a piece of paper. We need to physically see the action on the ground right now. So there is a future in agriculture for young people. People say that young people don't want to get into farming. Walk into one of our consultations, look around the room and see how many young people are around that table looking to farm.
And that was Elaine Houlihan, MACRA National President, talking to Aisling there. Now, Aisling, tell me, are you going to be one of those people that are going to raise a glass to the next coalition government this week?
I think I might just tentatively hang on and see how they get on over the next while, Frances, before I do that.
But there's been some criticism, hasn't there, when it comes to the price of a pint in this country now?
Yeah, we learned this week that from February 3rd, the price of Diageo's range of draft products, including Guinness, Harp, Smithwick's and Hop House 13, are going to rise by 6 cents per pint, excluding VAT. And the price of the non-alcoholic Guinness 00 will increase by 9 cents per pint. And the Vintners Federation of Ireland has criticised Diageo for this move. And according to the VFI, this price hike, which equates to €5.28 per 50 litre keg, will force many publicans to raise the sale price of a pint, which will compound existing issues facing struggling pubs amid the ongoing cost of living crisis out there. I suppose the VFI saying that anything that makes it more difficult to get the punters over the threshold of the local pub is going to make it so much more difficult for their members. Now, Diageo justified its decision here. They deemed it essential for the continuation of its operations in Ireland. And they said, like many businesses, they continue to face increased costs across their Irish operation. But the VFI has said that publicans are now being squeezed from every angle with rising energy costs, higher wages and government-imposed charges. And they said this latest price increase from Diageo adds yet another layer of financial pressure on pubs that are already struggling to keep their doors open. And they said it's not just about the price of a pint, Frances, it's about the survival of pubs across Ireland. So not some good news there. That increase, as I said, coming in from February 3rd and probably likely to be passed on to consumers.
Yeah, so basically it doesn't matter whether you're doing dry January or not, you're going to be hit all over.
It seems to be the case.
Now, unfortunately, we're out of time for today. So from Aisling and myself, thanks for listening. And please don't forget to rate, review and follow The Farming Week on Spotify, Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. We hope you have a good week ahead.
This podcast is sponsored by AXA Farm Insurance. AXA offers tailored cover to fit your unique needs, whether it's public liability or protection for your family home, outbuildings or farm vehicles. Based in Athlone, the AXA Farm team of agri-specialists and regional managers work together to ensure you receive the seamless support you need. Switching to AXA is easy thanks to an innovative online service that enables you to quickly and easily find the best cover for your needs. For more information, head to AXA.ie. AXA Insurance Stack is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.